Podillya, an ancient city with beautiful architecture, ancient temples, the majestic church of the Capuchin monks, mysterious dungeons, a city tower, a unique coffee house museum, a picturesque promenade and a musical fountain. This is a wonder that we highly recommend you to visit and see for yourself. We welcome you to Vinnytsia. My name is Maria, and today I will guide you on a tour of a lot of tourist attractions in this beautiful and historic city in western Ukraine. We shall begin our acquaintance with the city of Vinnytsia from the place called Murals. It is exactly where the oldest buildings of this city are located. If we're talking about a starting point in the history of the city of Vinnytsia, then this is 1363. And this date is associated with the name of the Grand Duke of Lithuania Olgerd, who gave these territories to his nephews, the Koryatovich brothers. The task was to build fortifications in the area. By the way, we're now near the oldest building in the city of Vinnytsia. This is the State Regional Archive, which was built as a monastery of the Order of the Jesuits at the beginning of the 16th century. Subsequently, a Jesuit collegium was opened here, but the monastery building, together with the Dominican church, which would appear later, was a serious fortification, Murals. Local residents to this very day call this territory Murals. This fortification served as a defense for the city. The Jesuit complex was built as a fortress, for which it received the name Murals, which is translated from the Latin word murus, meaning walls. In case of danger, due to the threat of invaders, these walls gave shelter to the townspeople. During its existence, the ancient Jesuit and Dominican buildings survived many historical events, uprisings, revolutions and wars. They were partially destroyed and then rebuilt, but today they are real architectural miracles of the Vinnytsia Oblast. And now we will visit the main monastery of Dominican monks of the city. It is a modern Transfiguration Cathedral. This magnificent building is one of the fortifications of the Murals complex. At one point, this church was built by Dominican fathers, and today it is known as the Orthodox Transfiguration Cathedral. Welcome to the Transfiguration Cathedral. Indeed, our cathedral is the spiritual pearl of the Vinnytsia Oblast. It was built like a Dominican monastery, but in 1832 it was transferred to the Orthodox Church, and since then divine services of the Orthodox Church have been held here. The authentic Dominican murals have been preserved only in one part of the temple, and the modern cathedral was painted in the 20th century. As we see, the murals on the walls reflect biblical scenes. In the temple there is an icon to which thousands of believers come to pray. This is an image of the icon of the Mother of God in a silver setting. Vinnytsia residents come to pray before this icon. There is an interesting tradition. Newlyweds, after the wedding, accompanied by the priest, go to the chants to the Mother of God. They go to this icon, pray, and ask her for her blessings of living a future life together in peace and happiness. Everyone can climb to the bell tower of the cathedral, up the old staircase, and from there they can observe the city from a bird's-eye view. Recently, in our cathedral, interactive excursions called the Bell of Time began to be held, and excursions began with a visit to this bell, which all visitors have a chance to ring, calling the Mother of God for assistance. Naturally, much has changed here over the long history of this temple, but the stone building has survived from its earliest times in its original form. There is also a unique, beautiful courtyard that was once used by Dominican monks, and now priests and parishioners of the Transfiguration Cathedral come to rest here. Our cathedral is unique, since inside original paintings of the 17th century were preserved. Mikhailo Kotsubinski was baptized and married here. In the 1920s, the church was visited by Simon Petlura and Josef Pilsudski. Therefore, we invite you to our cathedral to see and feel the antiquity and the spiritual heritage of the Vinnytsia Oblast. One of the oldest monuments in Vinnytsia is the Capuchin Temple, which is called the Church of the Blessed Virgin Mary of the Angels. This name has been preserved to this day, and today we will pay a visit to this historic monument. This magnificent building is located in the center of the city, and few people know that the temple has an ancient and interesting history. The Catholic Church of St. Mary of the Angels is an architectural monument of local importance. In 1746, upon the invitation of the Vinnytsia mayor Ludwig Kalinowski, the first Capuchin brothers arrived to establish a monastery here. The construction of a modern Tuscan Baroque monastery stone church was completed on February 18, 1761, and Bishop of Lutsk Anthony Erasm Volovich consecrated the church. In 1888, the Tsarist government forced the Capuchins to leave their last monastery in Ukraine. Only diocesan priests were allowed to serve in the church, but in 1999, the church was returned to Catholics. We're now in a monastery of the 18th century of the Brethren of the Minor Capuchins. We were invited by the then mayor of the city Ludwig Kalinowski, who was an elder and a colonel. Our temple and monastery is like a visiting card of Vinnytsia. Today it is very famous. This temple, like the other spiritual shrines in the city, survived both destruction and reconstruction. In Soviet times, there were lectures on atheism here. Of course, this is a paradox, but such was the communist ideology. But time passed and everything changed. In 1992, the church was transferred under the guardianship of the Capuchins, its true owners. The church was restored, and today it is a fully functional church. What is really interesting is that our brothers, the minor Capuchins, chose this very location. By the way, there was an underground passage. The Capuchins used it on one side for their basements in order to preserve wine and other products. They also used them as evacuation exits that were connected with other Catholic monasteries built nearby. One of them was the so-called New Vinnytsia. This is a Jesuit temple which is very ancient, like the Collegium with the Dominican monastery. But there are certain, let's say, doubts about this historic fact. There are legends about the Vinnytsia dungeons. Do they exist? Are they a myth or reality? Now we are in Monastery Church. These are dungeons that were used for economic purposes. It was here that the vegetables that the monks grew were stored. Here we can see the original preserved walls that the monks restored for almost 20 years, grinding them by hand. And we see here the original brick.
Протягом більше ніж 20 років, шліфуючи вручну, і ми маємо оригінальну тут цеглу.
Which is called the palm. This brick was made by hand in special forms, and it is made to the width of the palm of a human hand.
Вона виготовлена на ширину долоньки, тому вона називається, власне, пальчаткою. Цегла оригінальна, їй більше 200 років.
Therefore, in fact, it is called a palm. The brick is original and is more than 200 years old. The walls near which we stand are special. In this room, the temperature is around 15 degrees Celsius.
В нас температура 15 градусів, вона може коливатися.
It is constant due to the fact that the walls are empty.
Завдяки тому, що стіни пустотні.
Of course, the dungeons were used not only for storing food. Here there were places where the dead monks were buried in the walls, and of course, there were secret passages that were connected with other Vinnytsia monasteries.
Lux perpetua lucet aes, requiescant in pace. Світло вічне хай світить на них, відпочинок в мирі.
There is an assumption that it was in this part of the dungeon that the monks were buried. Therefore, here is this inscription in Latin. If you go further, you can meet the ghost of a monk who constantly wanders through this dungeon.
Як і в будь-яких підземеллях, тут
As in any dungeon, there is a ghost here. Once the monk Shimon brewed beer in this place. It is believed that he finds everyone who comes down here.
хто сюди приходить.
Come to the church and go down to the cellars. Perhaps you will discover the secret of the underground labyrinths of the Capuchin monastery. Of course, in addition to the ancient temples in Vinnytsia, there are a lot of other interesting tourist sites and attractions that are worthy of attention. Now we will introduce you to a talented person, an artist who creates unusual paintings. These are not paintings, but murals. His work is the size of a 9-story building, and he uses up to hundreds of liters of paint on his masterpieces. Meet Alexander Marchenko. The artist moved to Vinnytsia from the occupied Crimea, and since then this city has become his hometown. And it was here that he began to create his astounding murals. The very first mural was created at the Vin Art City Festival, which has been held for 4 years now. The work titled The Grain of the Universe was made on the Timoraziev Library. The difficulty is in painting the image into space and into the ensemble of the city in order that the idea and concept of the picture is properly shown to viewers. Of course, before a huge picture appears on a building, the artists engage in a lot of intense preparatory work. First, we receive the address, then we go to study the location, communicate with the residents, understand how this district of the city lives, and find out what is interesting there. After that, we draw a sketch, which we coordinate with the Vinnytsia City Council and with the residents. We try to find out whether they like it or not, and will listen to the opinion of the local citizens, while the work is being executed for them. There is a difficulty in this process because the drawing occupies 300 square meters and the work is performed at a certain height. Now buildings in Vinnytsia are decorated with more than 24 different murals created by Alexander and his talented colleagues. In addition to the bright wall work, the city is impressive for its number of parks and squares, as well as fountains. We can confidently call this regional center the City of Fountains that give it a special mood. When you arrive in Vinnytsia in the summer, you will surely make it to some festival. For example, we visited one of these. And now we're in the Central Park at the vibrant Holy Festival of Colors. Today the main weapon is paints. Paint, music, dancing and multicolored painted smiling faces. Here there is positive energy practically everywhere. That's the holiday. We won't bid farewell for now because we will meet again in a week and continue the story about this unusual, wonderful historic city of Ukraine. Travel around Ukraine, discover new cities and tell the whole world about them. Let every one of your journeys be brilliant, interesting and unforgettable.